welcome back to another episode of TBD Crafts with Gabriel. I of course am Gabriel, and this week it's a bit of a cop-out video. Instead of having a diorama, work in progress or anything like that, I'm going to be showing you a showcase of my previous dioramas that I made before I started the YouTube channel. They are in order from earliest to most recent, this being my first one. And with it I'm also going to be giving a little bit of commentary on each one. So this is my first diorama, and I started not really knowing what I was doing. I'd watched a couple videos and I kept thinking like, man, I wish I could do that. I would love to have that for my display. And then all of a sudden I was like, bam, I can do that. And I went and I got flower foam, which was not a good idea. That was a pain in the butt. Got it everywhere. It was a mess. And I did this in my camper too. I lived in my camper at the time. But this was my first diorama, and I think it turned out pretty well. I mean, especially for a first time, and this is how I have it displayed currently on my shelf with the figures. And that's how the rest of these clips will be. It will be 2 angles, for the most part anyway, of each diorama, plus one at the end with the figures that I have displayed on it. I apologize as well if I'm talking funny. I bit my tongue last week and it's still a bit swollen. But as you can see here, I have Obi-Wan, my custom 2/12th, and my weathered Commander Cody on this diorama. And while it is no longer my favorite, it still holds a special place in my heart for being my first. Up next is my second diorama. This used to be my largest diorama. Now that position is held by my trench. As you can see in the back here, I got this wire getup going. That's because when I designed this diorama, I originally had in mind using the Battle Cat from Masters of the Universe, which I ended up getting on discount at my local Walmart. It was on clearance, and I painted it up, made it look real nice, and I wanted a diorama that I could sit on. So I made this large one, again using more of that flower foam. To go with the big cat, I made 2 custom Mandalorians, one of them being the one that's my profile picture on the channel, or at least it is at the time of the recording of this video. And then the second one being kind of a companion piece to go with that Mandalorian. And he doesn't stand up very well, so I have that wire set up in the back to hold onto his thigh, just as you can see, so he doesn't topple over, or continue to topple over. And these 2 figures are also 2 of my earliest custom figures. The one on the top of the hill, using the wire getup, was made using a Poe Dameron figure, which is why his ankles don't work very well. And it was also the first time I had really gone hard into sculpting armor using clay, and I didn't know about epoxy putty at the time. So this is just normal clay that I baked and then shaped and glued onto the figures afterwards, including the one at the far end right now. His shoulder plate is made out of clay. Fun fact, these 2 figures, or at least the one with the cape, he is based off cosplay armor that I was making for myself and never finished. And now, one of the dioramas that I was most proud of at point of completion is the small book nook that I made of an interior of a Star Destroyer. It's very rough now looking at it, knowing what I know now and what I can do differently, and this also gives you kind of a little bit of a hint as to what the next diorama that I'm working on is. But I made this a long time ago, and you can see it's all very rough. All the seams are they're kind of really ugly, but at the time of making this I was super proud. Sorry about knocking the mic there. I was super proud because this is also the first diorama I ever made to include electronics. That little hole in the bottom there at the back of the diorama is where the electronics plug in. I just used a basic light strip, LED colored light strip that you can get at Walmart, Target. I got mine from Target, to light up this thing. And I've used it for photography multiple times since, and these are the current figures that I have displayed on it. With the shock troopers, I did remove their pauldrons. Fox, I updated his comma, and the clone in the back is just a plain white clone from the 2-pack. I'm not going to go too in depth on the customization of these figures, just because if I don't already have a customization video of them, I have a showcase that shows some of these figures. Not all of them, but some of them, and I will be making another showcase eventually. While I am still proud of this diorama, I do look forward to making a new one. And I hope you guys look forward to it as well, because I'm working on it, and I'm very excited. It is much larger than this one. Being made specifically to be able to take a lot nicer photos with it. But I am still very proud of this nonetheless. And something I always try to keep in mind when making dioramas. For the most part, obviously the Venator or the interior Star Destroyer one doesn't fit this mold, but I wanted my dioramas to be versatile. I wanted to be able to use them with other figures, not just Star Wars, but if I ever started collecting other lines, I wanted them to fit with those as well. This one I actually made specifically for a couple G.I. Joe figures that I had, or still have. I'm very proud of it. The G.I. Joe figures are not what I have on display with it as of now, but when I made this diorama they were on display for a while on it. And the figures are, I think it was Rakondo, Tiger Force Rakondo, and Snake Eyes Wolf. I forget the name of the wolf, but I did paint it. So this is the wolf that came in the 2-pack with Snake Eyes, and I did paint him up to look like more of a wolf that would fit this sort of biome rather than a snow wolf, I guess. And I am very proud of it. This was also the first time, a lot of firsts with these dioramas. This is the first time I used what's it called? Epoxy for the water, I believe is what it is. Just diorama epoxy is what I used for it. No, resin. That's what it is. I used diorama resin, basic shallow pore resin, 1/8 of an inch each layer for the little bit of a creek that I had spilling over there, and gloss Mod Podge for the ripples on top, and some miniature scale snow for kind of like the foaming up bits of the water. And just so you can see, I did detail the floor of it. A lot of it got lost just because this resin was tinted. But I did do it, and I am proud of it. Still super proud. It does kind of warp in the heat, which I think is funny. But next time I use resin, I will do it properly. And this diorama was at the time the smallest one I had made. I was inspired by a video I saw of a First Order Stormtrooper statue that was made. I don't remember who made it. If I find it, I'll link it down below. But he turned a really cheap static toy of a First Order Stormtrooper into a statue, him kneeling down to pick up a helmet, an old trooper helmet. And so that's kind of what I did here. I only have one First Order clone, or one First Order Stormtrooper. I'm going to get a lot of heat from the comments. I'm giving myself a lot of trouble for that right now. And I made this so he'd be kneeling down. So this is one of the other dioramas that I have that is made specifically to fit one sort of fandom, I guess. So the Venator and this one definitely cannot be used except for a crossover. That'd be fun. I think I just gave myself a new photography idea. This was another fun one. So this one I was trying to make ruins, temple ruins, building ruins, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to deem it. And I think it turned out pretty well. I, at the time, didn't have any more insulation foam, so I was just using styrofoam. Just tore out a couple of chunks in that column in the back, used a toothpick as my exposed rebar in the back as well. and just laid down some details here and there. As you could probably tell, that fern, fake fern, is one of my favorite things to use. I get that from Hobby Lobby. And I thought it turned out good. I originally had Darth Vader on it with a few stormtroopers, but as I've gotten more and more stormtroopers in my collection, I just kind of took Vader off because he always had trouble standing on it anyway, and put these troopers on there. Another thing too that I try to keep in mind when I'm making these dioramas is to make sure that figures can indeed stand on them. Stable. At least up and down. But as you can see, I have these troopers, or especially the one that is currently off to the right, in a really kind of leaning over dynamic pose, and he's staying just fine. So keep that in mind. As always, I'm a little self-plug here. I do have my Etsy shop where I sell 2 different types of dioramas as of right now. I am going to put more, but as of right now I have 2 basic diorama display bases on there for sale, and they're perfectly stable. They're good looking, so if you want, check it out in the description below. And moving on here, this is kind of something I did on a whim. I didn't have any sort of proper foam cutting tools at the time besides a really, really dull knife. So that's why the back is kind of wonky there. But then I kind of played into it a little bit. I kind of made this based off some artwork that I saw years ago of a 501st Trooper sitting in the council chamber, leaning on a chair with his helmet on the floor, I think it was, and his head in his hand. So that's kind of what I was leaning into here, kind of a post-Order 66 vibe, with the scorch marks of the blaster bolts on the side of the chair there, and some blood is what it's meant to be. Some red paint resembling blood splattered about, and this is the way I have it on display. A little bit of dark wash to make it look perfectly dirty, and I didn't care about any of the rough edges for that reason. Post-Order 66, a lot of chaos happened in that council chamber. And so this clone trooper is currently how I have him on display. With the limitations of the articulation, I can't have his head in his hand. But I was able to get his head to be able to look down a lot further, and instead of having his head in his hand, I just went ahead and put a lightsaber hilt in his hand. And I have his helmet there on his blaster. On my shelf I do have Anakin and this other 501st clone trooper standing next to him. But I do want to eventually kind of make just a small base for this chair to go on of the council chambers. I think that would be really cool. But for now, this is how I have it. Last but not least, I am showing off this custom base that I made for a custom figure. They kind of go hand in hand with each other. I just used a regular, I think it was NECA figure stand. Went ahead and painted that, added some sand, different layers here and there. I chopped off the tip of this Lando Calrissian spear. I had 2 of the figure, one for customizing, one for not. So I chopped off the tip, glued it down, and I made this custom figure. His name is Cyrus. I made it for his little contest that I was in for a Facebook group I'm a part of. Didn't win. There's only 3 of us, so I came in 3rd. Not many people voted on it anyway. This diorama display base I made specifically for the figure. The theme of the custom was Desert Trader. So I kind of went for a hodgepodge of different stuff tacked on top of this figure, and a whole collection of goods to be sold. I am very proud of this figure. I did this in a week, didn't film any of it. Just kind of took my time with it and just let it be a little fun pastime. And that's pretty much it for this one. Well, thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed putting it together. If you liked what you saw and want to see more showcases in the future, or even some diorama making, consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing that notification bell, and hit the like button. Feedback is always welcome, whether it's positive or negative, so consider too leaving a comment down below. It really helps out the channel. Thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. In the meantime, YouTube thinks that you'll like this other video, so if you haven't already, why not go ahead and check it out. And as always, remember to check out the links in the description. I got toy photography down on my Instagram and some dioramas on my Etsy store I think you might like. Until next time.